You're just
Okay. Welcome everyone to our Monday, April 5th caucus prior to our regular council meeting. Present for the record right now, Council Member Love, Igo, Anani, Johnson, O'Brien, Farrell, Fahey, Frederick, Conti, and Hoey. Our staff, Research Council, J.R. Pichardo, Clerk, Danielle Gillespie, as well as Jared Pellerin, Corp Counsel Extraordinaire. Good to see you. Good to see you. It's been a while. So I think I got everyone that's here thus far.
Jack just came in.
Oh, Councilmember Flynn has also joined us. Council President Ellis isn't going to be with us tonight, so you got me. Hopefully I'm not too bad, but we'll get through this. So just jumping into the agenda. We have a public hearing tonight of ordinance 46-122 of 20, which will be voting on pending the outcome of the public hearing. My understanding is we have 3 folks for comment during the public hearing. Let's see, next on to, for the minutes, I'll be offering the 15th of March meeting minutes for that. Moving on to local laws introduced. We have local law F of 2021 by Mr. Ballerin. That will be going to the law committee. Okay. That's local law F. Next on to local law G of 2020 by Mr. Conti. Again, another piece of legislation that will be going to law. Next, H, local law H of 2021. Again, the law committee. Next, local law I. These are all intros of 2021 by Ms. Fahey. Will also be going to the law committee. Any questions thus far? No? Okay, good. Next, local law J of 2021 by Mr. O'Brien. We introed it and we're holding it to age, but also aren't we supposed to be combining it with the ordinance that was introduced prior? And I know Mr. Williams isn't here. He was going to be working on that. So it'll be a hold, but intro by Mr. O'Brien. Okay.
I think we got the revised one with the if I'm not, JR, is that correct?
My understanding, Brett did merge the two, and I think he was expecting the ordinance to be withdrawn.
Right.
Right.
Yes, it was sent. I'm trying to. Yep.
Okay. So we're good. It's a hold no matter what, and of course, once we get to the ordinance, that'll be withdrawn. So that was local law J. Moving on, the local laws held. Local law L is number 2 on the local laws held by Ms. Love. We'll be voting on that. Then next, item number 6 under local laws held is local law E of 2021 by Mr. Conti. That will also be moving with some amendments, I believe.
Yes, so this will be, I guess I will move to amend tonight. We do have a message from the mayor.
Yeah.
Attesting to necessity to move it tonight and allowing us to take it up. And the revised version was sent out earlier. JR sent that out with some explanation from Brett as far as the additional provisions. And I think the key, it's the same with some tweaking, but the key is the additional ones allow for impounded vehicles that are not redeemed to either be sold for scrap or destroyed. I think that's the main difference. And JR, you can correct me if I'm wrong, or Jared.
You got it right.
Okay. So with the mayor's message, I'd like to move to pass this tonight.
Okay, and Ms. Gillespie, you have that message on hand to read along with the law?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Doche has her hand up.
Ms. O'Shea?
I'm sorry. Oh, I stopped video. Local law.
I did it again. I did it again.
That's right. So local law C, I'll be
Amending.
great.
Right. Please. Again, not purposeful. It's not. It wasn't. So, okay. So Ms. O'Shea will be amending local law C. Okay. Okay. Moving on to ordinances held. We have item number 10 under ordinances held, ordinance 44-12220 regarding Scott Street by Ms. Frederick. We'll be moving that. That came out of committee with a positive recommendation and got amended. So that was number 10. Number 11, also by Ms. Frederick, ordinance 45-12220, again relating to Scott Street, passed committee, and we'll be moving that also. All right. Look up, no questions. Next, number 12 is the subject of our hearing. It'll pass pending the outcome of the hearing. It's number 12 from planning and Ms. Fahey, ordinance number 46-12220. Okay. All right. Next, moving on to number 14 under ordinances held by Mr. O'Brien. It's 4/31/21 relating to the water department and replacing lead pipes. That went through General Services Committee. Positive recommendation will be moving ahead with that also.
No, that's being withdrawn.
It's being.
Oh, you know what? It's
replaced
twice. It is. Right. I was trying to remember what Ms. Fahey pointed out the last meeting, and it was the duplicate 14 and 16 being the same. It's a withdrawal. It's been included in the local law J. So sorry about that. I'm gonna have to. Continuing on, that's it for the rest. Now we're on to resolutions introduced. It's resolution 32-4121 by Ms. Love. That will be going and taken up in the Housing and Community Development Committee on April 7th. That's resolution 32-4121. Next, on to the next resolution, 33-4121, relating to the budget and office of the treasurer. That will be going to the Finance Committee. Okay, next, resolution 34-2121. Again, Finance, Ms. Farrell, relating to the building and regulatory compliance. It'll be going to Finance. To be discussed. Okay. Next resolution, 354121 for the anti-Asian racism. We're all co-sponsors on that. That'll be a pass. Okay, and then next, by majority consent, will be adding the MC, which were from Mr. Conti, which were all included on 364121 regarding Mr. Langdon. And did you
Yes,
want- yeah,
let me, because it has been revised. And I just want to confirm if all members want to be co-sponsored. I didn't hear from everyone, but if everyone wants to be co-sponsored, we'll do that. So I think people are familiar with the issue here and the remarks that were made. And the calls, including from the county exec and Chairman Joyce for his resignation. And they were going to pass a resolution of censure at the county legislature's next meeting. So the original resolution contained that. Today, Mr. Langdon did or is resigning his office. So this resolution has been revised to take out the references to the resignation and also the reference to the county resolution of censure, which is being withdrawn. And so what it basically is now is just a condemnation of the remarks and a reaffirmation of the council's support for diversity and inclusion of the LGBT community. And it also provides that a copy of the resolution be sent to those organizations that actually are involved with the community and have also been vocal on this issue, these particular remarks, including the Pride Center, In Our Own Voices, the Albany Damien Center, the Alliance for Positive Health, and the House of Precise, which deals with youth issues. So that is the revision. So even though he has resigned, the remarks are out there, and I think it's important that we not be silent, but reaffirm our condemnation of those remarks and our support for the community. So I would still like to move this for passage tonight.
thank you, Mr. Conti, for that. Any questions?
Yeah, is everybody a sponsor? I belatedly said yes. I knew it. He got it.
Yes, everyone co-sponsors? Yep. Okay, it looks like we are. Okay. Okay, next on to resolutions held. We got number 9 under resolutions held, 233121 from finance. That will be passed.
Kelly, I think we have 8 to 22.
You know what? I clicked it. Okay. All right. So items number 8, 9, and 10 from finance.
But not 10. 10 did not pass through.
Oh,
So we're holding on to that. And just for the people that were there, I have been talking with the administration about that. So hopefully we'll be able to come forward with something soon.
thank you. Okay. So 8 and 9 will be passes. 10's still a whole. Number 11, resolution 273121 by myself, Mr. Robinson and Ms. Love, honoring Warren Mackey and renaming Livingston in his honor will be a pass.
You taking co-sponsors? We all on that?
Yes?
Co-sponsors, are we doing on that?
Yeah, yeah, everyone in? Everyone. So we'll have everyone. All right, so that's it for the agenda. You got a little time. I could have gone a little slower. What I would like to say to you, Judy, is I apologize. I spent a bit of time this afternoon talking to you and a few other people about local law. See, I don't know how I forgot it. So I apologize. It wasn't intentional. So we'll do the amendment to that. Any other?
Welcome to the club of rapidly disappearing memories.
Yes. And so we have a little bit of time.
Kelly,
Yes. Ouch.
those 4 that are being introduced tonight, going to law, I think some of those the sponsors can tell me, some of them are going to take more work than others. I don't think we could take them all up in one night. So if someone starts contacting me or Danielle when they want to get moving, we can set up some meetings. I know there's an awful lot on the calendar.
And
Especially
they are a package, so I don't know if it makes sense to, even if you might not be able to do all at one night, to at least have a quick review of all 4 at one night and then see where you want to go.
Okay.
But they are, I think they're related, so they are kind of a package that deals with it.
Definitely are, but
Yeah.
But yeah, on that note, local law, whenever I'm ready, whenever.
are you on one of them? Okay. I'm ready any night. So if you guys get a meeting you want, Danielle, whatever you hear from them, let me know.
Joe, so a number of us have been contacted by a landlord's group, and my inclination is to have some time at the committee where they can present, like after the basics of the legislation, maybe right out front, have them have an opportunity to present their position and raise their concerns, and maybe have some Q&A with
I'll have
them.
to get the feedback from the 4 sponsors before they want to, do that. So
I'm okay with having any public comments to make full transparency on the issue. Now I know where I stand, and I support local law F, and I think it's going to be good for all of our landlords, even though they may not see it that way.
well, I agree with that, but Richard proposed to have an overview of all of them in one night. And Richard, do you think we should?
Because, they do come out of the city's RISE grant. And there was a process that I know the city went through. Rob McGee was, I think, the point person on it in terms of a process with some community input that they did over the past year or so. And so it's probably good to get an overview from Rob or whoever in terms of the process, how these evolved, what they're intended to do, so that people have, understand that and then move through consideration. And obviously, there are interested parties on the landlord side and also on the housing advocate side. So you'd want to be able to hear from both of them.
Got a question. In 2000,
I think it's going to be, yeah, go ahead.
oh, in 2019, the New York State legislature did a major redo of landlord-tenant law with greater protection for tenants. So maybe Rob could give us a briefing on that.
I just think that it goes to, if you just go to committee and all of us who are sponsoring it, we could do the package deal like Conti said. So I think that's the best way, and just have individuals who want to share their thoughts and feelings about the legislation, be taken into consideration. But I stand behind local law H, and the sooner we could get it passed, the better.
Excuse me,
but I guess my big question is, do we have the authority to do what amounts to rent control? So I guess. Rob
It's
can
not
give
actually
us a
rent
briefing.
control.
I wouldn't say it's rent control. I
It's
think
not
that
rent
that's
control.
the,
Well, it limits to a certain percentage what they can raise the rent.
that's if you are looking to evict somebody and you're trying to raise the rent beyond that certain percentage as your excuse to,
I thought it was 5%.
yes,
Right.
but that's if you're using that as a punitive method to try to address issues with your tenants instead of actually addressing the issues with the tenants regarding property and
Well-
other things that come up.
Well, I guess the
but-
issue is, do we have the authority to do that? I mean,
Well,
I'm not arguing
let's
that
have
we
the
couldn't.
meeting, let's have the meeting that Rich is proposing, an overview, okay? Because I
Yeah.
think there's a lot of comments already. Let's get that and talk to all the sponsors, and then we can go back and get feedback. And when we're probably, hopefully just passing them all as a package, I think that sounds reasonable at this point. If you want
Right,
to-
okay,
We'll take it up after the first meeting, okay?
okay, yep. Mr. Johnson, apparently you just got to jump in, bud.
Well,
That's what
when
everybody's
I
doing.
raise my hand, is you got to jump in. But long story
Yeah.
short, I just have to advocate for people who, when we are putting this prologuing this, that are getting pressured fiscally. Certain people are jamming people up in terms of trying to get them to sign leases before this law goes in effect. So, in my own ward, I have seen instances where, some of these increases that the landlords are asking for are astronomical. And when you're going up on people's rent $300 2 years in a row, I think that's why we have a need for this conversation that we're having right now. So just as an advocate for people who are in situations like that and, are forced to move, I think that this is the type of protection that they're looking for in this this law. So I just wanted to put that on the record. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Mr. Igo.
I'm willing to have one the earliest we can notice a meeting. If it's next Monday or whatever, you guys, if it's available, let's do it.
I'll make myself available, Joe. Thank you.
Anybody else? Owusu?
I am available anytime,
So
any
that's it.
place,
Danielle, when can we
Make myself-
host a committee meeting? What's
if it's my
early?
bill.
I'm pretty available. I know that there's a lot of committee meetings going on, but, maybe Danielle can identify the available dates and then we can put those out, but I'm pretty
We'll do
available.
that.
I'll send out 3 options to you, Honorable Igo, and then you can, direct, and then I'll send another correspondence out to everyone else to find out what the overall availability is.
Sounds good. Thank you.
My anniversary is April 12th, so I may not be here on my anniversary or my birthday, which is April 24th. So I plan on avoiding those days.
We'll have one of them way before the 12th. So.
Okay. So has anyone joined that I missed? We're all, we're into the meeting, but okay. We're about to, we still got a couple of minutes. Have to remember to take my time in caucus. But yeah, the whole idea of having also landlords come, and not that I'm advocating for one side or the other, I'm more about affordable housing than anything. We usually have landlords show up during a public comment in a meeting where we're making a decision and they kind of state their case. Getting them into a committee meeting where you can have a back and forth and get more information, I think is much more what we need so we can make informed decisions, and also get tenants in. If folks are having the issues, which I have no doubt that they are, that Mr. Johnson is bringing up, we'd like to hear from those folks also. So, yeah.
So Mr. Kimbrough, I'm one of those folks.
I know we've had these conversations.
Yeah, so, you know, I was trying not to make it personal, but you know, like, it's a tough situation for people when you see people having to move that lived in a space for, you know, 10 years. And then, you know, they're faced with a fork in the road that is tough. It's a fiscal fork in the road. So.
Right. Yeah, and I would imagine that, and we haven't had a lengthy discussion on the whole Airbnb issue. I wouldn't be surprised if some of that is tying into getting, you know, increasing it to get folks out, you know.
It's a lot of different ways it could be looked at.
Yeah. Yep. But we'll have Joe Igo on the case, working it out.
And Danielle, I think we should definitely have an attorney at this that's up to date on some of these laws for the meeting. So I don't know who, if Brett's going to be back or Jallerin or who did it before, McGee.
Yeah, you're gonna want Rob McGee and I forget the other attorney that.
The new guy that they just hired.
That sounds scary.
Two attorneys.
Golfo and Rob
Yeah.
McGee from my office are the two attorneys that have spent a considerable amount of time pulling this all together. And I know that they have had meetings with both landlords and tenants, and I'm sure they would be more than happy to meet with you all and discuss those concerns that you have and also what they've gathered through their talks with them. Rob actually did approach me before this evening's meeting, so I know he's willing and able to meet with you all.
That's what we need. Thank you. Kelly, you can take up Corey's 3 minutes if you want. I'm always wondering how Alfredo gets 2 sign-ons at once. Do you see that?
I have noticed that.
We like him the best. So everybody loves Alfredo, so we like to have him here twice.
Yeah.
So my computer broke.
Oh.
My primary computer broke. So I'm using my phone so you guys can see me, and I'm using an old laptop that doesn't have a camera or a mic, so I can see you. So that's why I have to have 2. I'm actually gonna go look at getting a new computer this weekend. Trying to get the old one fixed, and that's becoming more complicated than I thought it was gonna be. But this is working in the meantime. You work with what you got.
Yes, it is. Okay,
7
the
o'clock my
time
time.
is now 7 o'clock. So with that, we'll start the meeting. Welcome everyone to the Monday, April 5th meeting at Albany Common Council. Will clerk please call the roll?
Yes, Mr. President, if all members can unmute themselves so that they're able to respond to their names. Anani,
Present.
Valorant,
Present.
Conti,
Here.
Joshette,
Here,
Fahy, Farrell,
Here.
Flynn,
Here.
Frederick,
Here.
Hoey,
Here.
Igo,
Here.
Johnson,
Here.
Kimbrough,
Here.
Love,
here,
O'Brien,
Here.
Robinson.
Councilmember Fahey, I'm here. I had
Yes.
trouble unmuting.
Mhm. 14 members present, 1 absent.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Okay, we'll move on to the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence. Can we get Mr. Nani to do the pledge for us?
All right. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. God bless Albany.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Okay, now we'll be moving on to our public hearing on ordinance 46-122-20. Madam Clerk, would you please read the ordinance?
An ordinance repealing Chapter 375, the Unified Sustainable Development Ordinance of the Code of the City of Albany, and enacting a new Chapter 375, Unified Sustainable Development Ordinance with new numbering.
Thank you. How many folks we have? 3 lined up?
We have 3 people. It indicates both. So I'm going to start with the first person, which is Christine DiPolito.
Okay.
Hello, I didn't expect to be called on so quickly, but thank you. I am reaching out to you folks because
Hold on one second, Ms. DiPolito. Can you hear me?
I can.
Yeah, this is.
Hello, I didn't expect to be called on so quickly.
I think we got an echo there. You still with me though? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. My name is Kelly Kimbrough. I'm the president, current president of the council. During the public hearing, it's just some rules. You can only comment on the ordinance at hand, which is 46-122-20. I'll need you to start by giving us your name and address. Council members may or may not ask questions during this time. So with that, I'll turn it over to you, ma'am.
Okay, am I still echoing?
No.
Okay, so first I just want to start, I thought there was going to be discussion about the use of rubber bullets by the Albany Police Department. Is that correct?
Yeah, so you're in the public hearing. I think you want to speak in our public comment section for our regular meeting. If that's the topic you want to speak on, you're gonna have to step out and then come back in the regular meeting.
Oh, okay, when will that be?
Shortly after the public hearing.
Okay, all right,
Okay, thank you.
thank you.
Honorable Kimbrough, I think that some of the people that signed up were slightly, may have been a little confused. They indicated both, but they had previously provided comments specific. So the next person that I have is Roger Markovics. And we can just see if it was his intent. to provide-
The only person I have next for the public hearing is Brel Massaroni. These are the people who indicated both.
Mhm.
That's it.
Rogers, he signed up. I'm looking at it in date order. I have Roger next.
Oh, I have Roger for only public comment on mine.
Yeah, Roger Markovic says both.
Okay, so we'll check. We'll start with Roger. Hello, Roger. Can you hear me? It's Kelly Kimbrough. If you're speaking, you're muted. We can't hear you.
All right, good. Now can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, good enough. Sorry about that. I'm computer illiterate here. Okay, yeah, I am wholeheartedly, first of all, Roger Markovics. I live at 38 Myrtle Avenue. And I've been involved in nonprofit housing stuff for past 50 years, primarily with United Tenants of Albany, where my wife Maria and I have been co-directors since we organized a group back in the early 70s. Since we retired about 5 years ago, and so we're active in a loose confederation of people, network rather, of people called Housing for All, people who don't have any affiliations, and it's not a nonprofit organ. We don't have any budget, no staff, whatever, but just concerned about affordable housing and all of its ramifications. So with that in mind, I am wholeheartly in favor of this ordinance. The 4 points, all four points are important. The most important one is and most controversial one is good cause for eviction. I'll skip back that for first. Oh,
I think you're not talking about the ordinance. That's the subject of the public hearing. You want to participate in public comment, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to need you to back out and come back in a short time from now to speak during public comment. We're in the public comment portion of the hearing, of the public hearing.
The next person that signed up that indicated both is Brielle Mastriani. She's the next person, but again, I'm not sure if she's confused or not.
She's not even in the attendees list on my end. Oh, there she is.
I can't see the whole.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, Miss Mastriani,
yes.
Mastriani, hi. This is the public hearing for ordinance 46-122-20. Is that what you're here to speak on?
So I was under the impression that I was looking more for the public comments.
Okay.
So I apologize for that. I would like to make a public comment though.
Yeah,
whatever
okay,
that's going to be.
It'll be short, right after this public hearing. It'll be short time from now. So just if you can back out, we'll be proceeding pretty soon. So do we?
There's one other person that indicated that they wanted to speak to both, but they canceled their registration. So I think that concludes the 3 people that I can see. I'm not sure if JR sees anyone differently.
That's the 3. Those were the 3 I had. I didn't have Christine. Yeah, that's it.
Okay. Yeah, and maybe we want to try to look at how this happened, what the confusion was, although most people normally don't have an issue navigating that. So if there's no further comment, we're going to close the public hearing. Okay. All right, we'll declare the public hearing closed. Okay, and with that, we will move on to the public comment period for our regular meeting. Madam Clerk.
The first person that we have signed up for public comment is Lauren Manning.
Miss Manning. Miss Manning. Miss
Hey,
Manning,
can you
please.
guys come back to me? I was having trouble connecting and I'm just getting connected and settled.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And I now have to do Dr. Green's public comment tip. So can you guys do us like later as I'm just getting connected properly?
That's fine. That's fine. Yep.
Thank you, sorry.
Okay.
We can come to Thomas Mueller.
Okay. Hello, Mr. Mueller.
It's Mueller.
Mueller, yes, welcome to our public comment period here at the Albany Common Council. You got 5 minutes to speak on any topic you so choose. Council members will not be answering questions or responding. If they choose to do so, it'll be later in the meeting. With that, sir, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you very much. Good evening. My name is Thomas Mueller. I'm a member of the Albany community. I'm an educator, I'm a counselor, and I'm an individual who's been involved on the ground throughout the summer, helping our people to demonstrate their concern around some of the things that have been taking place in regards to how Black and brown people have been treated by the police department. With that said, it's come to our attention that there is local law C that is coming about to the city council, put forth by Mr. Shea, which I first would like to thank you, Mr. Shea, for really pushing this through public safety and all of those who served on the public safety committee. I want to speak in favor of passing local law C as is unamended, meaning that the city would ban outright chemical weapons used against our people, as well as the use of rubber bullets. Many of you have seen what has happened when the city police department has decided to use these against its own people. It's sad, it's disheartening, and it helps to build a further distrust of the police department. It's something that we should not have anybody exposed to. And I firmly believe that we need to make sure these type of militant forces are not used against community members. Now, I know there is an amendment that's being introduced to severely limit the use of chemical weapons. I believe it was in terms of like a hostage situation. I still believe that we should be banning these weapons altogether. I don't see how using tear gas in a hostage situation would do anything to help anybody, including the hostage. It clearly further puts more lives in danger. And I believe we really need to take a look at further de-escalation techniques, which should be employed by the police department. And I think, as many have seen, including several members of the council who were on the ground last year and were even caught up in the melee, have seen how there was a complete lack of de-escalation tactic used. The police department's own policies as far as telling people that they were going to employ the use of tear gas was not used. And after watching the public safety meeting in which the police department and chief commented that out of all of they've learned through the past years that they were going to get a bigger speaker, I think that really leaves me as a community member wondering if these weapons are left in place, are they going to be used when they should not be? And I believe that it leaves many community members with that question in their minds. So I fully would support the council moving forward with a complete ban of these weapons, which should not be used against our community members to begin with. Furthermore, I would hope that the city council would encourage the police department to further learn de-escalation techniques that would help to quell any further demonstrations that could get out of hand. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mueller. Madam Clerk?
Yes, the next person that I have on my list is Brielle Mastriani.
Hi, good evening.
Welcome, Ms. Mastriani.
First of all, thank you for holding this forum, but I do want to say, I think it's rather ridiculous that this is being held up for a vote. Have been battling stage 3 cancer and have been tear gassed 5 times this summer throughout the capital region and other places in the state of New York. I also want to say that I am a leadership member in a community-based organization here in Albany called Community Matters. But I did some research on what professionals had to say about the effects of tear gas and why that in 1928, it was banned as chemical warfare. Chemical warfare is a violation of the Geneva Convention of 1925 and was officially implemented in 1928. So let me explain to you all what happens when one gets tear gassed. First of all, tear gas isn't actually a gas, it's a powder. It's a powder that once provided with heat will come out in the form of aerosol. What it does, it first targets the pain receptors in your body, causing intense stinging in your eyes, itching, also makes it nearly impossible to breathe. And used on people who were peacefully protesting. Sure, it might have gotten a little loud, but I think police repeatedly killing community members let's talk about the origins of we could talk about the origins of what the police are and why they are here. But so it's really been institutionalized that police have been killing Black and brown bodies for a very long time. And, I think that, things got a little loud and we woke you up. And the message that came to the protesters while we were protesting peacefully, while the police in the city of Albany kneeled with protesters. And then later that evening, tear gas them is absolutely insane. And the fact that you want to hold a vote to decide whether or not that's right or wrong is ridiculous.
Ms. Mastriani, you have a minute left.
Thank you. I think that being that this is a vote, ban it. And as far as the use of it being used in hostage situations, you're acting like the tear gas is going to find the bad guys. I think if the tear gas actually found the bad guys, the police would be the ones whose eyes were burning, whose breath was taken from them, who collapsed to the ground. I wonder how many of them have been tear gassed repeatedly on numerous occasions.
Okay, thank you, ma'am, for your comment.
Mr. President, would you like to go back to Lauren Manning?
Yes.
Hi, my name is Lauren Manning. My address is 8 Tyler Trice Terrace, lifelong resident of Albany, New York. And I too am here to express support, speaking personally as a resident, for a full ban on tear gas and rubber bullets and other kinetic munitions. The proposed legislation started as a full ban. Now we have a ban with exceptions due to fears of a few over one specific incident. There will always be scary things that happen that cause fear in some people. However, we cannot ignore the actual harm caused to many more in an effort to legislate away the what ifs and the fears of a few. I was also concerned 2 weeks ago because it seems that the Albany Police Department's position is to be asking us as a community to choose one state violence over another state violence. They would like us to believe that these are our choices and that there are no alternatives, but this is just not true. There are alternatives, such as listening to the community, Black and brown people in particular. In the future, if there are protests, instead of trying to disperse them, we can just try to ensure as a police department that they don't turn violent. People who think that force is being used against them most certainly will respond in force or lash out in other angry ways. We as a city need to reconsider how we use such harmful agents. Members of this community deserve protection from injury and poisoning by their city. And I would ask that there be a full ban on tear gas in this city. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Manning.
And I believe Ms. Manning was going to make comments also on behalf of Alice Green.
Dr. Green's here.
I see Dr. Green.
Dr. Green? Are you going to speak?
I believe she called in, so I'm not sure, but I'm doing it. I'm not even sure. I think she may be covering two things at once, but she asked me to cover it. So I trust that she wants me to cover it. I am just actually pulling her comment up. Okay, here we go. So this statement is from the Executive Director of the Center for Law and Justice, Dr. Alice Green. The Center for Law and Justice believes it is important for local law C to very narrowly define any exception to a ban on the use of tear gas. The proposed exception for a situation that involves a hostage in danger of physical harm or loss of life would appear to be a reasonable inclusion in the law. However, the center opposes any broad language, such as an exception for dangerous situations, as this would set the stage for tragic results based on erroneous perceptions of danger by individual officers. It was a later unsubstantiated claim of danger that led to the death of George Floyd. It was a later unsubstantiated claim of danger that led to the paralyzing of Elazar Williams. Any exceptions for the ban on the use of tear gas must be very narrowly defined in local law C. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Manning. Madam Clerk?
Yeah. So Christine DiPolito, was she able to give her comment? I know she had started.
No, I wasn't able because I had,
Yeah, you were in the
I was
public hearing.
confused.
Yep, this is your time. You've got 5 minutes to
Okay,
speak.
so my name's Chris DiPolito. I live in Nassau. I used to live in Albany. When I heard that there was going to be discussion about rubber bullet, of course I am against the use of tear gas, but people have already spoken eloquently about the use of chemical weapons in Albany. But I have personal experience with the use of rubber bullets, having visited Belfast, Ireland. Rubber bullets were deployed against citizens in Belfast and throughout Northern Ireland by the Royal Ulster Constabulary. And they were a great propaganda tool because, of course, citizens, whether they agree or disagree with the protests, they're certainly not going to agree with the use of live rounds. So a rubber bullet sounds pretty benign, but it's not. I don't know if you've ever seen one. I don't know if you can see me. This is a bullet. I don't know if you can see this.
We don't have video from you.
Oh, okay. So
if you
I
turn the
can't-
camera on, okay.
Oh, okay. Now I'm okay. All right, maybe I can turn the camera on now. Is it on?
We see
Oh,
you.
so this is a plastic bullet, a rubber bullet. And this is what it sounds like. Oh, now my dog is barking. Sorry. If I were to throw this at you, it would hurt. But it leaves a gun that looks like a tear gas canister gun at 60 miles per hour. Now, I was at a demonstration in Belfast where a young man was hit in the chest with this, not this bullet, but with a rubber bullet. He went into cardiac arrest and died. He was just maybe a few feet away. I'm so sorry. Charlie, out. I saw a young woman, actually a teenager in a band who had an accordion strapped to her chest. The accordion was completely crushed. And thank God she had it on her chest, because she probably would have died as well. It was not unusual to hear stories of young people being killed by these plastic bullets, rubber bullets. Of course, the police officers are supposed to aim the gun at the ground so that it ricochets and hit, but even that can cause a lot of damage. And often, if you have an angry police officer or you have a racist police officer, maybe they're not going to aim the gun at the ground. For that reason, I think rubber bullets should be completely banned in Albany. And I'm done.
Okay. Thank you
Thank
for
you.
your
Thank you for
comment,
your
ma'am.
time.
Okay.
Mr. President, we also have Elston Mackey with us today that wishes to speak.
Okay. Mr. Mackey? Oh, okay. Hello, Mr. Mackey, you're muted. One more time. Yeah. You're still muted. We can't hear you. We see you now. And we just don't hear you yet.
Okay.
Right there. Good. Yep. Good to go.
Okay. I'd like to thank all council members present here tonight, and really appreciate your voting to place street sign here on Livingston Avenue at the corner of Lark Street. You know, all of you that know Warren know that he was a person that was very active within the community without being an elected official. You know, no man is larger than life, but there are men that are large in life. And Warren was one of those men. He helped people that needed information from politicians or organizations. He was a very good spokesperson for people that were in need. Give you an example of how he interjects himself in a positive manner. I was working at the firehouse while they were tearing down the Arbor Hill School Bridge, and there was talk about them not replacing it. And when I got home the next morning, we talked about it. And before I ended the conversation, he was on the phone with Bob Van Amberg to go down to see Mayor Jennings. And they got it done. I don't know what the discrepancy was at the time. It was who was going to be responsible, the city or the school district. But Warren got it ironed out through the mayor, and that was just one example of how he and got involved not only in this community but outside of this community. And I think, you know, just about everybody that met Warren were touched by Warren, you know, and people sought to touch him in a manner. You know, he cut up in laughter a lot, but he was very diligent in his works of humanity. You know, he got people, got children and involved in college and continuation of their education. And that takes a lot for a person to do when they don't have particularly a personal interest or a personal relationship with that person. I'm very thankful that this is going to transpire, you know, hopefully through his foundation. The question won't be asked 50 years from now, who was Warren Mackey? You know, hopefully that college fund set up through Warren and Denise Mackey will continue the legacy of my brother, and a rightful and truthful manner. I thank you again for the council, for your votes, and God bless you all and continue to do your work. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah.
Mr. President, up next, we have Roger Markovich.
Okay. Mr. Markovich?
Yeah, I already announced who I am before. So, and I've been here so often at the council, and actually I want to start by thanking you guys, all of you in the council, for being so diligent and it's really fine leaders for all of us. And so I want to say that, with Housing for All, we're supportive of these 4 proposed changes to the codes. And rather than go over them, I think you know what they are, and I'll just say there's going to be more opportunity to speak later on, especially with landlords around. If you want to have a dialogue with them, we're welcome to do that. But it is time to recognize the need for equity with tenants. I mean, not equity with the tenants investing, but the equity fairness about this, because of all the amount of rent the tenants pay, they have a right to be treated with respect and recognize the validity and the value of their investment, for which they get no return other than the fact they're living in a place. So anyway, I don't need to drone on. Thank you for listening, and thank you for acting on all this stuff. So next time there's going to be a public hearing of some sort, I'll be prepared to speak at more length if necessary. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Markovich.
Next up, we have Nesta Littlejohn with us.
You're muted. Hello?
Can you?
Yes,
Can
we
you hear
can
me
hear you
okay?
now. Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, council members. And yeah, my name is Nesta Littlejohn. I'm at 7 Elm Street. I'm a member of the Youth Political Alliance here in Albany, and I just wanted to comment in favor of local law C, the tear gas and or bullet ban, and as well as the package of housing bills. However, as a member, a resident of the South End, whose house was affected by tear gas at the first protest that was used, I am urging the Common Council to pass local law C unamended, so dropping the amendment that makes an exception for hostage situations. And that's for 3 reasons. The first reason is that the language in the amendment is too vague. So it says that tear gas can be used when individuals are being restrained against their will. So I'm concerned that the police can justify using tear gas in the case of civil disobedience or sit-ins, just because the language is too vague. And the second reason we're calling for the amendment to be dropped is because the outcome of using tear gas and those exceptions will have the same result. Innocent bystanders will be affected by tear gas if it's used in a hostage situation. And that will predominantly still affect people in lower income and minority communities when tear gas is used in hostage situations, as it blows around the neighborhood that are more densely populated. And then the third reason is that the use of tear gas in hostage situation is escalatory and it's not evidence-based. So there are historical examples of tear gas being used in hostage situations, like in 1993, when the FBI raided the compound in Waco, Texas. And they initially pumped the compound full of tear gas, and assuming that the people inside the compound would be flushed out and they would be able to break the siege on this religious sect. But what actually happened was it was escalated sharply, and it resulted in a widespread fire, and 75 people were killed, including 25 children. So for those 3 reasons, I am strongly urging the council to pass local law C unamended, because the Albany Police Department cannot be trusted to use chemical weapons in any scenario. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Littlejohn.
We
Madam
also
Clerk.
have Marshall Miller signed up for public comment.
Yes, Mr. Miller.
Great. So thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm a city resident for 18 years. I'm a landlord. I live on Elm Street as well in downtown Albany. I appreciate the comments of my fellow citizens regarding the tear gas ban, and I support it. However, tonight, I just wanted to speak in more detail about the proposed housing laws. I'm really heartened by the discussion that you had in caucus about the idea of meeting with landlords and tenants and community stakeholders and getting community input. I feel like that's really needed in this case because I think it's easy to set this up as somehow a vote of the tenants versus the landlords, but I'd really encourage us to think about this more broadly, and that I think we're all in favor of well-being and safety and success of everybody in Albany, including the tenants and the small-time landlords who live here. And I particularly want to contrast this with perhaps outside investors like hedge funds or downstaters or out-of-staters or Californians. I mean, anybody can buy property in Albany and rent it out, but we all live here. You may have heard there's a company called Invitation Homes, which has collected $50 million in rent last year. So we're seeing surging housing prices, and I worry that those who have made millions off the stock market, off of the surge of Bitcoin, who are looking for a place to put their money, will profit as much as possible off of our housing stock while putting as little money back in. And knowing that, we need to be really strategic in our laws when you have landlords operating at that scale, and the rest of us, the equity that my neighbor Roger talks about is just so important. The equity between them and the rest of us, and that essentially a lot of landlords are small business owners. The Affordable Housing Journal Shelter Force reports that roughly 7.5 million homes in this country are 2 to 4 unit buildings. We see a lot of those in Albany, as well as another 13.7 million homes are 5 to 49 unit buildings. We see those in the city as well. So if you just ask yourself, well, what percentage of those are owned by basically like small time mom and pop landlords? 7 out of 10, according to Shelter Force. So as the, I guess you'd call me the pop in that mom and pop situation, I really look forward to thinking how we can all work creatively together about housing issues. I'm particularly concerned about local law the residential occupancy permits, which I feel like needs to really be rethought in light of the issues that I'm raising. So again, thank you for the caucus discussion, incredibly heartened. Let me know when it'll be, and I'll be there, and I look forward to speaking with you all more.
Thank you, Mr. Miller.
Mr. President, we also have Raina Morris with us.
Okay, Ms. Morris.
Yes, hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
So I would also like to speak in favor of passing the ban on tear gas and rubber bullets without amendment. And
Ms. Morris, can you state your address for us?
oh, I'm sorry. I am at 23 Delaware Terrace.
Thank you.
Last summer during the beginning of the protests when tear gas was used, I lived at 8 Wilbur Street in the South End, in the area of the where the tear gas happened. So I would like to speak in favor of the ban without amendment, mostly because of the very reckless way I saw the police using the tear gas last May. I've been around tear gas a few times in my life before that happened, in protests in larger cities and things like this. And the way that the Albany police was using it was incredibly reckless. I've never seen them throw so many canisters at such small groups of people. There was one incident specifically that I would like to relay where I saw There was a group of people on South Pearl Street, and then there was a group of people on Trinity Place. The people on Trinity Place were trying to leave the area. We were walking up the street, sort of parallel to where the police were down on South Pearl Street. And so I could kind of see down anytime there was a break in the buildings, they were just taking tear gas canisters out of buckets. And then other ones were shooting them. But there were police just throwing round after round at maybe a group of 5 or 10 people who were kind of huddling behind cars. People were trying to hide behind whatever they could to escape from the rubber bullets. And then wherever the people were trying to hide from the rubber bullets, they were throwing tear gas canisters and throwing multiple canisters at the same people. A group of people were trying to get away from the police off of South Pearl Street into, I saw a group of people hide in a parking lot on South Pearl in between Arch and Westerlo, I think. And this parking lot was surrounded by on 3 sides with walls. So people hid behind the cars in there to escape from the rubber bullets. But then when the tear gas started getting thrown in, and it was round after round that they were throwing into there, the people couldn't get away. When I came upon the scene, I came upon the back part of it off Trinity Place, and I saw a group of people who had seen that this was happening, went over and were pulling people up over maybe a 6 or 8 foot wall to get them out of the tear gas, because they couldn't go out the front because then they would be shot with rubber bullets. These people were in very, very bad shape. People were hyperventilating and couldn't see and were on the ground. There was no medical aid given.
Ms. Morris, you have a minute left.
Okay. And so basically also in that same night, I know somebody there who was there with near the area with children and weren't really part of the protest, but they had come to sort of like see what was happening. And when it started to escalate, they were trying to go home. The police wouldn't let them walk away up Warren Street. They made them go up Trinity, and her children were tear gassed when she had just asked the police where to go. So I don't actually trust that the police are going to use it appropriately, even in the exceptions that get put into the bill. And that's why I think that we should not have it at all. And that's it.
Thank you for those comments, Ms. Morris. Ms. Farrell, I entertain a motion to extend public comment.
I don't know what to do in this situation.
Yes, no, so just, yes.
Yes, we would love to have that.
Extend public comment, yes. Second. All in favor?
Second.
Aye. Okay. Thank you. Motion passes.
Mr. President, I have Thomas Vandor, who wishes to speak on local laws F and I of 2021, if he's still with us.
Now, one more, my apologies, I had some background.
Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Thomas Vandor signed up for public comment. He wanted to give public comment on local laws F and I of 2021, if he's still with us.
oh, okay, yeah.
He's not here.
So we'll move on to Caitlin Anadio Pitkin.
Miss Inadio, I can't see your name, it's so long.
Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah, state your name and address.
All right, my name is, can you hear me first?
Yes, I can.
Okay, perfect. All right, my name is Caitlin Anadia Pitkin, and I live in Amsterdam, but I work for United Tenants of Albany on 255 Orange Street. Since I started working at United Tenants in September of last year, I've talked to hundreds of tenants, and I've heard several stories where tenants have been displaced or made homeless because their buildings were deemed unsafe, unfit by code enforcement. When landlords refuse to make essential repairs to their buildings, tenants don't have a choice but to leave their homes. They don't always have a place to go. Hotels, motels, shelters, the street. Sometimes people are lucky and they have friends or family to stay with temporarily while they start the arduous process of finding a new place to live. But especially during COVID, any of these options should be unacceptable. If code enforcement is allowed to make repairs and bill the landlords, people will be able to stay in their homes instead of being displaced by negligence and greed. Likewise, good cause evictions will provide tenants with more security in their housing. Right now, landlords don't need any reason at all to evict someone, and this makes it easier for landlords to go through with retaliatory evictions. These retaliatory evictions can be done for any number of reasons, like discrimination, a sexual advance by a landlord that was rejected, or code enforcement being called because the landlord wasn't maintaining the apartment. By making landlords give a reason for their eviction, tenants will have greater stability and feel more at ease when it comes to engaging in the community and making investments in their area. Thank you for your time.
Mr. President, next up, we have John W. O'Grady.
Hello, Mr. O'Grady. You're still muted. You're muted.
Okay. Okay. Hear me okay?
Yep, we got you.
My name is John O'Grady. I've lived in Albany about 50 years. For the first 15, I was a renter, and now I'm a homeowner. I'm a part of the Housing for All group that Roger Markovich described, and I want to speak in favor of the legislation to protect tenants, such as Good Cause and the other three bills. We do not have a majority of bad landlords. We do have a few. I think most of them are from out of town. And the legislation is simply intended to protect the tenants from those few. It should not disrupt any other type of landlord. I've seen the objections of some people, some of the landlords and realtors to this legislation. I've read it, and I think we have answers to it. I'm heartened by Marshall Miller's comment before, who's a landlord, and I look forward to the dialogue. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. O'Grady.
Next up, we have Sridhar Chatur.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, sir.
Would like to commend you guys on the resolution 354121R that you're considering today that condemns all forms of Asian American racism. Since 2019, the anti-Asian hate crimes have surged by 150%. Asian American Pacific Islander communities have been unjustly scapegoated and demonized by many in this country over the COVID-19 pandemic. Asian Americans number more than 23 million in the United States and represent more than 30 different nationalities and ethnic groups, including Samoan, Tanguan, Guamanian, and Native Hawaiian from Pacific Islands, Lao, Hmong, Mien, Vietnamese, Cambodian, Thai, Burmese, Malay, and Filipinos from Southeast Asia, Pakistani, Bangladeshi, Indian, and Sri Lankans from South Asia, Afghani and Iranians from Central Asia, and Korean, Japanese, and Chinese from East Asia. Asian American immigrants have always been an integral part of the American fabric and have both shaped the history of the United States as well as had their own lives dramatically influenced by moments in its history. We have been helping the US economy in many walks of life, including healthcare, law enforcement, food service industry, education, and governance, just to name a few. Locally, during the pandemic, our communities have been offering support to all, be it as frontline workers, volunteers distributing food and masks, or standing in solidarity with our brothers and sisters in the Black community against racial discrimination. Our contributions to the Capital District community make us more vibrant as a collective. America is about inclusion, not exclusion. This sentiment remains not only relevant, but essential as we all confront this growing racism in this country. I encourage you to both condemn and confront racism when you see it. This is a core American value. This resolution is a step in the right direction, and we look forward to working with the Albany City Common Council to create a thriving and vibrant city where all are truly welcome. Thank you.
Ms. Chatur, just need your address.
Oh, 16 Quadrini Drive, Albany, New York.
Thank you.
Next up, Mr. President, is Willie White, who signed up to speak regarding to his objection to tear gas usage in the city of Albany. If Willie White is with us.
I don't see him.
I see Destiny Harris as an attendee that may wish to speak.
Okay, we can move on to the next, yeah.
Hello, everyone. My name is Hello, everyone. My name is Destiny Harris, and I'm a part of a local organization, Black and Brown Women led, called Elevate 518.
Just your address, ma'am.
Well, I live in the South End.
Okay.
So I wanted to speak in favor of local law C. I wanted to make sure that my voice is heard during this meeting today. I don't see how, without the amendment, I don't see how this tear gas can be used in a hostage situation. Think about the young men and women that were out there, the young children, the elderly people that may not have been out there during the protests during the summer, but they were still affected by this tear gas. Young children who may have been hit or traumatized by the rubber bullets due to seeing someone next to them or someone that was with them being struck by these rubber bullets. If you want to say you want to use tear gas in a hostage situation, think about a hostage situation possibly happening at an elementary school. Nowadays, there are mass shootings going on in all types of different aspects. So I would say, let's think about that. If this law is not moved forward, then I feel like you failed us. You failed the community. You're furthering the relationship between the Albany Police Department and the communities that they're supposed to serve. It does not make sense to me. We can no longer harm our communities. We should be thinking about how the police department can use proper de-escalation techniques. Just because they want to use tear gas rather than a gun, they want to use rubber bullets rather than a baton or whatever the case, whatever weapon they choose to harm a Black or brown person. Let's think about those things, how we can better serve our communities, also as public officials. Let's make sure that we are out here in these streets with our community so we can better those relationships, so that we can better vote, because that's the most important thing here today. So thanks for letting me comment tonight.
Thank you for your comments, Ms. Harris.
Mr. President, I also see it wasn't Mr. Negron, but he is no longer with us. Jessica Maxwell.
Miss Maxwell, you're muted.
Yes, hello. I am a resident of Troy, but I have deep roots in Albany, specifically dating back to my great-grandmother who immigrated from Sicily in the South, who built community in the South End and on Sard Road. I would just firstly like to say that I also strongly echo the support of local law C and the banning of rubber bullet and tear gas ban that has been discussed by many people so eloquently today. So I don't think I have anything further to add to that, other than that we should also be focusing on ending the carceral system of policing and focusing on transformative justice. We should be centering de-escalation techniques when training our police and promoting the demilitarization of policing in our community. I'd also like to acknowledge the great work that Elevate 518 which Destiny Harris represented today, that they're doing in our community. Really phenomenal organization. But I am actually here today to comment on the housing bills, local law F and I, the good cause eviction, unsafe and unfit buildings, and changes to the residential occupancy permit. Firstly, for good cause eviction, this is so vital and important to the integrity of our neighborhoods, and particularly for tenants, as it gives tenants the rights to continue to live in their home without fear of retaliation, which was spoken before from their landlords if they complain about living condition or other quality of life concerns. I'm sure you can all use your imagination of the myriad of concerns that could come up, but a very interesting one that is currently being discussed in our legislature is that New York has more children with lead poisoning than any state, and that the rate of children with elevated blood levels, lead levels in some neighborhoods are 5 to 6 times higher than Flint's peak rate. So you can imagine if you are a parent of a child in a home that requires this kind of lead remediation and having to choose between your children's health and having a roof over their head. Good cause evictions also gives renter greater security in their housing, and then they will be more likely to view their apartment and their neighborhood as home and to feel fully vested in their housing and neighborhood, which ensures greater neighborhood stability. And that all circles back around to the policing issues that we're discussing. I think there is a big fear among particularly corporate landlords, but not so much among small business owner and small occupancy landlords, that good cause eviction legislation will make it near impossible for landlords to evict problem tenants. This is frankly not true. Good cause eviction means that a landlord must have a reason to evict a tenant from their housing. And these reasons still include things such as non-payment of rent, violating a substantial obligation of their tenancy, committing or permitting a nuisance such as maliciously damaging the apartment. The tenant is in violation of causing a violation of the law. So there are still plenty of things that landlords can evict people for. It's just protecting the everyday citizen from being discriminated against by their landlord. Secondly, for the unsafe and unfit laws, what does this bill do? Rather than declare a building unsafe and unfit and forced to be closed, adding to the urban blight in Albany, this bill would empower the City of Albany Building Department to make emergency repairs if the owner refuses to do so or can't be found, and the owner will be billed for the cost of the repairs. This is going to help tenants in neighborhood by reducing the displacement of tenants from unsafe buildings and those who must then stay at a homeless shelter, which causes physical and emotional disruption for families. And it'll help get critical unsafe code violations repaired to stem the abandonment of buildings in our neighborhood. Finally, regarding the residential occupation permit changes, the changes that are proposed are necessary because they will reduce the times that landlord must renew the ROPs for their building from 30 months to 24 months. And most important, a landlord would be required to post the ROP at the building and include emergency contact information, code enforcement contact information, and tenant advocacy resource information, meaning that tenants will know whether there is an ROP on their apartment before they move in and who to contact when there are problems. I thank you so much for extending the public commenting period tonight and for your work for our city.
Thank you, Ms. Maxwell.
Mr. President, Stephen Negron is back, and then we have about 6 very brief written comments.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Mr. Negron. You mute. Okay, good.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear and see you. Thank you.
Hello?
Yes.
Hold on.
Can you hear me, sir?
All right, I
Mr.
can hear
Negron.
you a little bit. My volume's a little off. I'm sorry about that. But can you
Okay.
guys hear me?
Yes, we can. Just give us your name and address and you can go. Go ahead.
All right. Awesome. So my name is Stephen Negron. My address is 5510 Brook Street in Albany. And today I just wanted to comment about local law C and talk about the use of tear gas and rubber bullets. As a community activist and as somebody that was very active last year, and I got to firsthand see the effects of tear gas and rubber bullets. while also understanding the fact that the tear gas that was deployed against protesters largely didn't really affect the protesters as much as it did the residents in the Arbor Hill area. Because as the police department indiscriminately were throwing canisters, they didn't really think about the fact that even after the protesters left that area, that gas remained and it poured into the houses of residential homes, and it affected the elderly as well as children. So to kind of reiterate and to repeat a similar point that has been made repetitively throughout the night, tear gas and rubber bullets need to be banned. And as rubber bullets, and this was a point that was brought up earlier tonight, when they shoot a rubber bullet, they're supposed to shoot it at the ground first. And I can tell you that I've personally seen a rubber bullet being discharged that wasn't pointed anywhere near the ground. You can tell the trajectory of someone's where someone is pointing a firearm based off of their shoulder position, and you can tell whether someone's pointing toward the ground or a little bit higher above the waist. So we really don't. There's not much trust between APD and the community that they serve right now, and it's mainly because of instances like this. So as a city, if we can ban these uses and make the community feel a little bit safer, and if we can really emphasize de-escalation tactics, if we can emphasize community policing, we want the same things that everyone else wants. We want to bridge the gap between the police and the community, but we need a police that isn't aggressive and that isn't so willing to cause harm to the community that they're supposed to serve. So that's pretty much the gist of my statements tonight. I hope that the Common Council will do the right thing and ban these weapons, and that local law C goes through without a hiccup.
Thank you, Mr. Negron, for your comment.
Thank you.
And
Madam
now
Clerk.
we are on to the written comments that have been submitted. This one is from Susan Dubois, and it reads as follows. I'm writing to submit a written comment for the April 5th, 2021 Albany Common Council meeting. I'm glad to see that the legislation about residential occupancy permits, good cause eviction, and emergency repairs will be introduced at this meeting. The good cause eviction provision will probably be even more important now than it would have been prior to the COVID-19 pandemic. Due to new residents moving here from New York City area, landlords may be tempted to force out their existing tenants to make room for new tenants who would be willing to pay higher rents. Susan Dubois, 24 Jeanette Street, Albany, New York. Next one is from Reverend Joe Paparone. I am the acting director of the Labor Religion Coalition of New York State, a coordinator for the New York State Poor People's Campaign, and a resident of Albany, Ward 11. I'm writing in support of the housing bills currently under consideration by the Albany Common Council. These bills provide common sense support for vulnerable tenants and should be implemented without delay. Despite advances in tenant protections at the state level in recent years, landlords continue to hold disproportionate power over their tenants. These bills would hold landlords to account and provide protections to many tenants who have been struggling through the COVID-19 pandemic. Healthcare is a human right, and we will continue to organize to make it so. When treated like any other commodity, i.e. for the purposes of making profit for landlords and developers, human dignity is diminished because tenants are placed at the mercy of a system stacked against them. They're required to accommodate unscrupulous, absentee, or dismissive landlords because the costs of moving are so high and so disruptive. Despite some legal protections, the landlord-tenant relationship is inherently unequal, and it is imperative that our city and surrounding communities defend tenants from landlords who would prey on vulnerability to extract rent. Do the right thing and pass these bills. They are but a small step in assuring the human right to housing and an important move in the direction of justice. Thank you. Reverend Joseph Paparone, Acting Director, Labor Religion Coalition of New York State, Coordinator of New York State Poor People's Campaign. This next comment is from Ariel Shower. I would like to submit the following comments for tonight's meeting. A study written by researchers at the University of California, Berkeley found that 1 out of 37 people struck by rubber bullets are killed and 1 out of 7 are permanently disabled. They should not be considered a harmless alternative, and the real evidence-based impact on real human beings needs to be at the forefront of our minds. Next comment is from Patrick Shower. Imagine you are peacefully demonstrating downtown for a cause you care about because you believe in a better Albany. As you're walking along the street with your friends and neighbors, your head is suddenly rocked backward. The world spins and pain explodes from your right eye as a projectile 3 times the mass of a marble strikes your eye socket at 200 feet per second. You are permanently blinded in that eye and will carry the limitation for the rest of your life. This happened to at least 20 Americans last year, and 261 people worldwide in recent history. Do not let this happen in Albany. Do not create that bad press. Keep rubber bullets out of the crowd control arsenal and enact the rest of the 13 demands published by the All of Us community organization. My name is Patrick Shower, and I would like the above to be read during the time for public comment on tear gas and rubber bullets tonight. Thank you. This one is from Aiden Suckick. I live in Albany South End, and I'm submitting this written comment. As a member of the Youth Political Alliance in Albany, YPA welcomes and supports this proposed legislation and hopes it can be a stepping stone to more comprehensive tenant protections and a more equitable and fair housing and rental market in Albany. Thank you, from Aiden Suckick. The next one is from Shayna Sager of Troy, New York. I work in Albany often. I'm against the ability for Albany to be able to auction off or scrap unclaimed vehicles. Trap, tow, and impound are overutilized in urban areas, resulting in disproportionate negative impact to Black and Brown citizens. As a result, an emergency appeal should be offered within 48 hours of impound, and impound fees waived related to poverty level. The fact that an appeal process for these impounds is not available is outrageous and far behind more progressive areas in the country. Without an appeal process in place, they have no recourse if they cannot afford the insane impound and tow fees. That concludes the written comments that I received today.
Okay, so with no further comments, we'll close the public comment period. Thank you. Okay, next on the agenda, we're on to approval of minutes from our previous meeting. Ms. Farrell.
Thank you, Mr. President. We have the minutes from March 15th, 2021 for approval.
Thank you. Can I get a second on the motion?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, the motion passes. Next on to consideration of local laws. First up, we have Mr. Ballerin.
I'd like to send local law F and would go to committee.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, please read the law.
Local law amending Part 2, Courts and Legal Procedures of the Code of the City of Albany in relation to eviction proceedings.
Okay, Ms. Farrell.
Thank you, Mr. President. That will go to the Law Committee.
Thank you. Okay, next up, Mr. Conti.
Thank you, Mr. President. I noticed the introduction of local law G of 2021.
Thank you, Madam Clerk, please read the law.
Local law amending Article 9, Building, Construction, and Regulation of Part 2, Building Construction of Chapter 133, Building Construction of the Code of the city of Albany in relation to the power of the chief building official to act in emergencies.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Ms. Farrell,
Thank you, Mr. President. That will go to the Law Committee.
thank you. Moving along. Next up, Ms. Fahey. Ms. Fahey, you're muted.
I think it's Councilmember Anani, local law H.
Oh, you know what? I skipped the page. My apologies. I skipped right to I. Yes, Mr. Anani.
Thank you, Mr. President. Local law H of 2021, and ask for his introduction.
Madam Clerk, please read the law.
Local law amending chapter 133A, building construction and housing special provision of the Code of the City of Albany in relation to issuance of notices of violations, penalties, and enforcement of stop work and unsafe and unfit orders under the New York State Uniform Fire Prevention and Building Code and Albany City Code.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Ms. Farrell.
Thank you, Mr. President. That will also go to the Law Committee.
Thank you. Now moving on to Ms. Fahey.
Thank you, Mr. President. I notice local law I of 2021 and ask for its introduction.
Madam Clerk, please read the law.
Local law repealing parts 4, residential occupancy permit, and 5, rental dwelling registry of chapter 231, housing of the Code of the City of Albany, and enacting a new part 4 of such chapter entitled rental occupancy permit and rental dwelling residency in relation to the city's residential occupancy permit and rental dwelling registry programs.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Ms. Farrell.
Thank you, Mr. President. That goes to the Law Committee.
Thank you. Okay. Next on to Mr. O'Brien.
Thank you. I noticed local law J for introduction, and I asked that it be held.
Thank you, Mr. O'Brien. Madam Clerk.
Local law amending chapter 371, water and waterways of the Code of the City of Albany in relation to installation and repair of service lines and replacement of lead service lines.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. That'll be a hold. Intro and hold. Thank you. Okay, next, moving on to local laws. Uh-oh. 1 second. About it. Local laws held. Item local law L, Ms. Love.
Thank you. I noticed local law L 2020 and ask for its passage.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, please read the law.
A local law amending the charter of the City of Albany in regard to residency requirements of common council members.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Any discussion? Oh, being none. We'll do this on a roll call vote. Excuse me. So please call the roll.
Yes, if all members can unmute themselves. Anani.
Yes.
Valorem.
Yes.
Conti.
Present.
Doshette.
Yes.
Fahey.
Yes.
Farrell.
Yes.
Flynn.
Yes.
Frederick.
Yes.
Hoey.
Yes.
Igo.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Kimbrough.
Yes.
Love.
Yes.
O'Brien.
Yes.
13 in the affirmative, 1 present vote.
Okay, the motion passes. Local law passes. Okay, next on to Ms. Doche.
Thank you, Mr. President. I notice local law C for amendment, and I ask for an opportunity to speak on that amendment.
Okay, so we will go ahead, Ms. Doche.
The local law C is amended. I feel the need to provide clarification since so many people had asked the Common Council to act on local law C without amendment. Local law C was reported out of committee, and the motion was made to amend it as it was being passed out of committee. Mr. Hoey made that amendment to address a hostage situation in good faith, I think, believing that we would have 3 votes in order to vote it out of committee with a positive recommendation. There was some further discussion on it and with regard to the specific wording, and I agreed to work on the wording to address situations indoor and outdoors with regard to this. So I did so. I do not feel like I am at liberty to not make that amendment because it was voted out of committee with an amendment. The amendment is narrowly crafted, very narrowly crafted. It is to not deal with specifically a hostage situation because that is not defined in law, but to deal with a situation in which somebody is restrained in the same manner that they would be in the event of a kidnapping or an abduction. The amendment also specifically requires, and it was the intent of the mover, to make it clear that there would be no other alternative available. The legislation, the amendment makes it clear that the chief or deputy chief needs to make that determination that there is no other alternative available to secure the safety of the person who is being restrained. The restraint is also not sufficient. There has to be a belief that the person is at significant risk of serious bodily harm. And finally, because this is a hostage situation that we're talking about, there is an opportunity for members of the public in the vicinity to be notified so that they can protect themselves in advance of the release of any tear gas. And so this amendment also specifically requires that people both indoors and outdoors in the vicinity are notified in advance so that they have an opportunity to protect themselves before any tear gas is released. That particular amendment, that particular proviso is clearly required because one of the most significant concerns that people raised in the collaborative report was that the concern about tear gas being released in densely populated areas, because as we saw this last summer, people were being exposed unintentionally and without notice, often in their homes, and other situations that have been described tonight. At this point, it has been amended, and for us to pass it without amendment would further delay it because it will need to be unamended at the next meeting. I am honoring what I believe was passed out of committee. I respect the vote of the committee at that time. And I don't feel as though it's appropriate to now unamend it. if we were to unamend it at the next meeting, then that would then delay the vote again. The vote will take place on April 19th. I believe that this particular exception is not opening the door to, as was concerned, a lot of different kinds of interpretations. It is very narrowly tailored. I frankly would be surprised if it was ever used, this particular exception was ever used, because of all the caveats that it has to be somebody who's at significant risk of bodily injury, that they have to, that they are under restraint in the manner anticipated in the penal law for kidnapping or abduction situation. The chief or the deputy chief need to make a determination that that is the only means available, and that there has to be adequate notice to residents to be able to protect themselves. So while I might have preferred to pass this without those amendments, the reality is that is how it was passed out of committee. There was an expectation that this particular amendment would also engender the support of at least one more common council member. I'm not sure if that will be the result at this particular point in time, but the rules are the rules, and this is how we voted, how it was voted out of committee. And so I just wanted people to understand this process. I would encourage people to not seek it to be voted, to be amended again and delay the vote again. I am hoping that this will pass at our April 19th meeting as amended. Thank you.
Thank you. That was a lot. So in interest of full disclosure, I am currently working on an amendment of my own. I didn't want to get into this back and forth and be working on it here in this meeting. But I just wanted to put that out there so folks don't think down the line if I try to make a change or do something that it was disingenuous. I'm saying right now that I'm actively working on it. And without getting into it and going back and forth, I'll just put that out there that way. And I'll put it out for folks, the public and members to see prior to trying to move forward with it. I just thought I should put that out there. And with that being said, we were on to Mr. Conti.
Thank you, Mr. President. I notice local law E of 2021 moved to amend it, and as amended, pursuant to a message from the mayor, request passage.
Thank you, Mr. Conti. Madam Clerk, can you read the law and the message, please?
Yes. Local Law E of 2021, a local law amending Chapter 357, Vehicles Off-Road of the Code of the City of Albany relating to the illegal operation of off-road vehicles in the City of Albany. Next is the message of necessity, requesting immediate passage of Local Law E of 2021 as amended without the statutory aging period. Under Section 20.4 of the Municipal Home Rule Law, the Common Council may dispense with the usual aging requirement for a local law if the mayor shall have certified as to the necessity for its immediate passage, and such local law may be passed by the affirmative vote of 2/3 of the total voting power of the legislative body. I hereby certify that local law E of 2021, MC is amended April 3rd, 2021, which takes a number of steps to combat the reckless and dangerous use of unregistered, non-street legal off-road vehicles throughout the City of Albany, requires immediate passage at the April 5th, 2021 meeting of the Common Council. This local law will expand in the city code the areas in which such vehicles cannot be operated legally. And it also imposes a new $2,350 redemption fee, which must be paid before any vehicle seized in connection with the violation of this law may be redeemed from impoundment. This local law also provides APD the flexibility to sell vehicles at auction, sell them for scrap, or destroy them after they have remained unclaimed and impound for 60 days. It is imperative that local law E of 2021 MC is amended April 3rd, 2021 is passed at the April 5th council meeting so that the changes made by such law can take effect before summer, when use of off-road vehicles in this illegal manner has historically been highest and most dangerous. Submitted by Mayor Kathy Sheehan.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Any discussion? No. If not, okay. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
That's the
I do have, I'm going to say, like, I'm in support of this bill, but I have to say it again, that we have to have some type of discussion about an alternative for people to ride. Like, we have to do what we have to do to people that are jeopardizing our community. But, this is a population of people in our neighborhoods that like to ride off-road bikes, and to preserve the area that they use, and not to come up with an alternative is just, it just sounds too punitive. I think that I've received a number of calls and emails about people who would like to have a spot for them to be able to ride, and I think that we have to have that conversation. Even if we can't accommodate them, we have to have that conversation with them and explain why it can't happen. Just to say no riding ATVs or four-wheelers or whatever, however you look at it, no riding motorbikes in the city of Albany. There's going to be people that want to ride, and unfortunately going to be put in a situation where they're going to ride on the streets because of their I don't know how to explain their need or their yearning to ride a motorcycle or a dirt bike. But I just know that I think that it's an opportunity for us to have a discussion and try to figure out a solution to a problem that we're facing nationally. So I just have to say I will be supporting it, but I think that it's an opportunity for us to have a memorable moment with the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Does anyone else want to speak before the sponsor?
Mr. Conti has his hand raised.
Okay. All right. Mr. Conti.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. I do think there's an imperative to move on this tonight. The issue is really getting out of hand, and not just in Albany, but in other areas. And I've had some officials from other local communities call to ask about how we're dealing with this, et cetera. But I don't disagree with Mr. Johnson at all. In fact, I think we do need to look at to what extent we can develop alternative sites. I think it's hard to find something within the city, but that's a conversation I'd be willing to have, and if it's possible. But as Mr. Johnson indicated, I think we need to move forward also on this measure tonight. And it does complement the efforts underway by the APD. And I do want to compliment them on their recent activity where they seem to be making some progress here. And I think this will be helpful. So appreciate your support tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Conti. With that, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
All members can unmute themselves. Anani.
Yes, co-sponsor, please.
Valorem.
Yes.
Conti.
Yes.
Joshette.
Yes.
Fahey.
Yes, co-sponsor, please.
Farrell.
Yes, co-sponsor, please.
Glenn.
Yes, co-sponsor.
Frederick.
Yes, co-sponsor, please.
Howie.
Yes, co-sponsor, please.
Igo.
Yes, co-sponsor, please.
Johnson.
Yes.
Kimbrough,
Yes, co-sponsor, please.
Love,
Yes, co-sponsor.
O'Brien,
Yes, co-sponsor.
14 in the affirmative.
The motion passes. Thank you. Okay, next on to ordinances held. Ms. Frederick.
Thank you, Mr. President. I notice ordinance 44-122-20 as amended and ask for its passage with a roll call vote.
Any discussion? Oh, excuse me, clerk, please read the ordinance.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the closing of Scott Street in the city of Albany, New York.
Thank you. We'll start with Ms. Frederick.
Thank you. So I'll couple this with the next ordinance. This is in relation to the closing and the sale of Scott Street as part of the next steps for the development of the 76 project. As you'll remember, we had a recent rezone of that area as well for this project. So we did have a public hearing. This did pass out of committee with a positive recommendation as amended. And coupling this together again will allow the project to take the next steps in terms of decommissioning the street and moving forward with the build.
Thank you. So we will, Mr. O'Brien.
Do you want reports of standing committees, or do you want to do that?
Yeah,
after the vote?
Just after the vote, we'll go back. That.
Okay.
Mr. President.
I'm sorry. Hey, please call the roll.
Yes, please, if all members can unmute themselves. Anani.
Yes.
Valorem.
Yes.
Conti.
Yes.
Doshette.
Yes.
Fahey.
Yes.
Farrell.
Yes.
Flynn.
Yes.
Frederick.
Yes.
Hoey.
Yes.
Igo.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Kimbrough.
Yes.
Love.
Yes.
O'Brien.
Yes.
14 in the affirmative.
Thank you. The motion passes. Okay, so we're gonna back up to our reports of standing committees. I inadvertently skipped over it. So Ms. Fahey, we'll start with Ms. Fahey.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Planning Committee met on March 29th regarding substantial amendments, proposed substantial amendments to the USDO. And we will be meeting again tomorrow, April 6th, to continue that review. Just a reminder to everybody that we have a schedule and we'll be meeting every 2 weeks on the proposed changes to the USDO. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fahey. Mr. O'Brien. You're muted.
The General Services Committee met on March 18th to consider Resolution 273121, renaming a portion of Livingston Avenue in honor of Warren Mackey. His wife and 2 daughters spoke eloquently about his life, his accomplishments, his devotion to family, his devotion to community, as well as members of the council. The resolution sponsor Jamal spoke about his relationship with Warren Mackey, as did several council members, and as also did the traffic engineer, who also had a spoke about his dealings and workings with water. So it passed unanimously. And then also, we did have a discussion about ordinance 43121 in relation to lead pipes. It passed out of committee with favorable recommendation, but then there was some thought by Corporation Council that it should really be worked into a local law. So that one is going to be withdrawn. One other point, General Services wasn't able to make it to the meeting to discuss as follow-up to the ordinance, to the resolution that we had passed regarding the maintenance of bus stops, sidewalks, and the snow removal from sidewalks, bus stops, and crossings. They apparently are putting out some RFPs for equipment and for some extra staff, but they weren't able to make it. So I do want to reschedule that, as well as I want to schedule a meeting for another consideration of the street renaming. That's the street renaming in honor of Edwin Sperber. So I'll ask Danielle to send out a notice to the committee members for a follow-up meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. O'Brien. Ms. Farrell.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Finance Committee met on April 1st. We spoke about several resolutions. We had 22.31.21R, which was to add a DGS position. This person would be a social media and also proactive in notifications. So kind of a different outreach than they're doing now. And that passed through the committee with a unanimous positive recommendation. We also had Resolution 233121R. That is to change the salary of the building services supervisor. They're having issues filling that position, and they're hoping that with a higher salary they'll be able to attract someone and have someone stay in that position for some time. That also passed through the committee with a unanimous positive recommendation. Resolution 253121R was to change a labor 2 position to a labor 1 position. That was held in committee. The labor 1 position is the one last category of employee that does not make the $15.52 an hour. And the committee members, myself included, were not comfortable voting that through. And so, as I mentioned, I've been discussing that with the mayor's office. So there will be more to come on that at some point in the future. We also are aware of, we don't want to hold up Parks, so Parks has said that they would keep in touch with us. In addition, we also were provided an update from the budget office and the treasurer on the American Rescue Plan financing. If you weren't able to do that, fortunately, we have all of our meetings. You can go back on Facebook for any of the people who are excitingly watching this now and they want to know what's happening. You can go back and watch that, or you can stay tuned for our next exciting finance meeting, which will be on May 6th, where I'm sure we will have several, well, we do have several items to deal with already, and we'll also receive another update on the what the state of finances are. It's my hope to continue, as we continue forward, to get regular updates on this. And obviously in between finance committee meetings, we'll utilize, I'll either give a report or we'll have someone come to caucus if there's a major thing that's happening. But the administration has been very supportive of giving regular updates to the council, which we appreciate at finance committee meetings. And that is everything. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Farrell. Mr. Conti.
Thank you, Mr. President. So the Council Operations Committee held 2 meetings on March 16. We considered local law L of 2020. Yes, for 2020, which is Council Member Love's charter amendment related to a residency requirement for members of the Common Council, which was reported out favorably and which we adopted previously tonight. We also kind of discussed local law A of 2021 related to nonpartisan municipal elections, and there was no action taken on that. We met again on March 23rd and took up discussion of local law F of 2019, which would establish a comprehensive ethics law for the city of Albany, including establishment of an ethics commission. We had some good discussion, items to review further, and some recommendations from Corp Counsel to review. So we are looking at potential revisions and modifications in response to committee discussion. We did tentatively set a follow-up meeting on local law F for April 12th. At this point, I'm not sure that we'll be ready by that point, but there are some revisions that I'm going to try and turn around so that we can have another committee meeting on that and hopefully be able to move that through to the full council shortly. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Conti. Mr. O'Shea, you still?
Yes, the Housing and Community Development Committee is going to be meeting on Wednesday, April 7th at 5:30 to hold a joint public hearing with the Albany Housing and Community Development Agency to announce the year 47 grants for community development block grants, and to consider any appeals. Applicants have been provided with tentative notice of the awards and will be able to appeal to us at that point if they believe that they have been wrongfully denied or had their award reduced. We will be acting on, I expect to act on resolution 20.22.21R MC, which is the resolution that would authorize the mayor to submit the action plan to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. I will note that it seems that 20.22.21R has been dropped from the council's agenda, or maybe never made it onto the agenda. It was added as a MC. So I'd like that taken care of. There's also, we will be taking up Ms. Love's resolution, 32.41.21R, which is calling on the mayor of the city of Albany and our county, state, and federal partners to implement more incentives for affordable home ownership and grants for homeowner maintenance assistance. So Ms. Andrews will be talking about that. Adam Safranco from the Land Bank will be in attendance, and also somebody from the Albany Housing Authority to talk about what we are doing along those lines. I would also like to note that the notice that went out has a minor error in that it reflects that April 7th is Thursday when it's actually Wednesday, and perhaps that can be corrected as well and sent out. But since we have a date right, I don't think that changes anything, and I hope to see people on Wednesday for productive discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. O'Shea. And lastly, Public Safety met on March 24th to discuss local law C, and where it was voted out of the committee with a positive recommendation. So thank you. Okay, moving on, getting back on to ordinances held, number 11. Excuse me, Ms. Frederick, your second ordinance.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. I noticed ordinance 45-122-20 and ask for its passage with the roll call vote.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, could you please read the
An ordinance of the Common Council authorizing the sale of Scott Street in the city of Albany, New York to South End Development LLC.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
If all members will unmute themselves. Anani,
Yes.
Valorem,
Yes.
Conti,
Yes.
Dorchet,
Yes.
Fahey,
Yes.
Farrell,
Yes.
Flynn,
Yes.
Frederick,
Yes.
Hoey,
Yes.
Igo,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Kimbrough,
Yes.
Love,
Yes.
O'Brien,
Yes.
14 in the affirmative.
The motion passes. The ordinance passes. Ms. Fahey?
Thank you. I notice ordinance 46-122-20. Ask for its passage and a roll call vote thereon.
Clerk, please read the ordinance.
An ordinance repealing Chapter 375, Unified Sustainable Development Ordinance of the Code of the City of Albany and enacting a new Chapter 375, Unified Sustainable Development Ordinance with new numbering.
Thank you. Any discussion? Ms.
Yes.
Fahey?
Thank you. This is the long-awaited, well, at least the first part of their 6-month review. We passed our new zoning code, the USDO, in 2017. We were supposed to do a 6-month review by the end of the year. That didn't happen for various reasons until almost 2 years later. And we decided that it was necessary to break up that review. And what we did was take a look at technical amendments to the USDO first, and that concerned renumbering, looking at citations, typos, changes in the language, and some quasi-substantial amendments as well. And this was a very long process. And I do want to commend both the planning staff and all the committee members. I particularly want to point out Councilmember Doche for really taking a very painstaking approach to going through this over 300-page document very carefully to find all these errors. So once we do pass this technical amendment ordinance tonight, we've actually already begun to turn to the more substantial proposed amendments to the USDO. So this is an important step forward. It'll allow us to put this cleaned up document into the general code so that people can more easily access it, and to take better look at those other maybe more substantial proposed amendments that we might make over the course of the next several months. And as I've said earlier, we do have a pretty rigorous schedule of meeting every 2 weeks on this 300-page document coming up. But tonight, our focus is on passing this first part, the technical amendments to the USDO. And I want to thank all council members for supporting this. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fahey. Any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Yes, Mr. President. Anani,
Yes.
Valorem,
Yes.
Conti,
Yes.
Dochette,
Yes.
Fahey,
Yes.
Farrell,
Yes.
Flynn,
Yes.
Frederick,
Yes.
Hoey,
Yes.
Igo,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Kimbrough,
Yes.
Love,
Yes.
O'Brien,
Yes.
14 in the affirmative.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Mr. O'Brien. It's for the withdrawal of.
Okay, yes, I notice for purposes of withdrawal, ordinance number 4/31/21, because it's going to be replaced more properly by a local law, which is local law J 2021.
Okay, thank you, Mr. O'Brien. The ordinance is withdrawn. Next on to resolutions introduced. Ms. Love.
Thank you, Mr. President. I notice resolution 32.41.21R and ask for its introduction.
Thank you, Ms. Love. Madam Clerk, please read the resolution.
A resolution of the Common Council of the City of Albany calling on the mayor of the City of Albany and our county, state, and federal partners to implement more incentives for affordable home ownership and grants for homeowner maintenance assistance.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Ms. Farrell.
Thank you, Mr. President. That will go to housing.
Thank you. Next, Ms. Farrell.
Thank you, Mr. President. I notice resolution 33.41.21R and ask for its introduction.
Thank you, Ms. Farrell. Madam Clerk, please read the resolution.
A resolution of the Common Council consenting to the elimination of 2 full-time positions and the creation of 2 others, which will affect salary totals for the 2021 budget. And it's from the Office of the Treasurer.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Ms. Farrell.
Thank you, Mr. President. That will go to finance.
Thank you. Ms. Farrell.
Thank you, Mr. President. I noticed 34.21.21R and ask for its introduction.
Madam Clerk, please read the resolution.
A resolution of the Common Council consenting to the elimination of 1 full-time position and the creation of another, which will affect salary totals for the 2021 budget, Department of Buildings and Regulatory Compliance.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Ms. Farrell.
Thank you, Mr. President. That will go to finance.
Thank you. Okay, next resolution, Mr. Flynn.
Thank you, Mr. President. I know it's resolution 35.41.21R and ask for introduction and passage.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Flynn. Madam Clerk, please read the resolution.
A resolution of the Common Council of the City of Albany condemning all forms of anti-Asian racism.
Any discussion? Mr. Anani?
Thank you, Mr. President. As many of you are aware, I'm a son of immigrants from West Africa and currently account. It's tragic, and my thoughts are and prayers are we lost several weeks ago in Atlanta. Begs one to ask ourselves, particularly when it comes to the topic of violence, what we have to do to prevent any type of violence. We have to do a self-reflection of violence and, quite frankly, what kind of society we want to live. We must also speak against injustice wherever they might reside, because injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. The hateful massacre in Atlanta should shock the conscience of all of us. We stand with the families of the victims and the entire Asian American community, including those who call the Capital Region home. Our community, our city, our neighborhoods are a welcoming community. We embrace all, many of whom work tirelessly to make ends meet and contribute to the vibrancy of our community. And I want our Asian community to know that all of us here on the council will fight for their right to live in this country without fear, because that's what America. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you. Any further discussion? If not, we are all co-sponsors on this, so let's just do a voice vote. Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Okay. The motion passes. Thank you. All right. Ms. Farrell.
Thank you, Mr. President. I notice resolution number 22.31.21R and ask for its passage.
We just, no, we had to do the motion to add by majority consent.
I apologize. Thank you, Mr. President. I move to add by majority consent resolution 36.41.21 MC.
Thank you. By MC. Okay, that's the first. Second on that motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Okay, the motion passes. Mr. Conti.
Thank you, Mr. President. I offer resolution 36.41.21R and request its passage.
Thank you, Mr. Conti. Madam Clerk, please read the resolution.
Resolution of the Common Council condemning the blatantly homophobic remarks of Albany County Legislator George Langdon and reaffirming the Common Council's support for the LGBTQ+ community.
Discussion, Mr. Conti.
Thank you, Mr. President. I can't help but note that the previous resolution we adopted deals with anti-Asian racism, and this resolution deals with what were really blatantly and offensive homophobic remarks by a member of the county legislature. I hope there's a day comes when we don't have to adopt resolutions like this or reaffirm our commitments to diversity and equality and equity, but that it just comes as a natural course of how government operates. I'm not going to recount the incident that happened. The remarks were offensive, harmful. Words hurt. Words give comfort to people who hold beliefs that relate to inequality, discrimination, and you might say even a willingness to do harm. And I think we've learned that over the past 4 years with the prior incumbent in the White House. But I want to, as you know, since this resolution was put in, Mr. Langdon has decided to resign. He apologized and then resigned. And I really want to compliment the community for their swift reaction and condemnation and outspokenness on this. We can't be silent. And if anything we've learned, we can't be silent. And so that's part of really what helped turn this around. And I want to also acknowledge County Executive Dan McCoy and Albany County Legislative Leader Andrew Joyce, who also both were swift in their condemnation and calls for Mr. Langdon's resignation and willingness to move forward with a resolution to censure him, which has since been withdrawn. So as I say, it's important that we not remain silent when these things happen. And that's why I think even though, apologies don't wipe out what was said, it's still there, and it betrays a certain belief that we need to reaffirm where we are in terms of where this council has always been, or well, almost has always been. I remember 1987, where heard things like this, but where this council has been and where the city has been. And so I do appreciate your support for this tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comment? Okay, we are all co-sponsors on this. So by a show of hands, all in favor, say aye.
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 Kelly,
Aye.
I think other
Okay.
members want to speak. I don't know if.
I did. I asked, did you want to speak, Joe? Oh, you wanted to speak.
I just said
Hold on. Okay, he said yes, Miss. Okay. Were you waiting to speak, Mr. Anani?
Oh, yes.
You usually don't hesitate to jump in.
I'm all
so,
set?
yes, you are.
Oh, gotcha. I'm the only one? All right, gotcha. Sorry about that. Thank you, Mr. President. I think we all know the remarks made former county legislator, George Langdon, are totally unacceptable for anyone, let alone a public servant. The only appropriate thing for him was to resign. And quite frankly, I'm glad that he did. However, it's that we as a council come out in a unified voice to condemn the type of language and to make it clear that we will not accept legislators who think that certain groups of people should be diminished, let alone banished from society just because who are. We are public servants because we are obligated to serve all public. We don't exclude anyone. Again, we are elected to represent everyone. So I'm proud to support this resolution because it makes it clear that we support LGBTQ community, as well as anyone who calls our city home or our county home. And we will not tolerate elected officials who think they dehumanizing language against any group of our society. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so with that being said, we're all co-sponsors, show of hands. Okay. All right. Okay, the motion passes. Okay, Ms. Farrell.
Thank you, Mr. President. I notice resolution 22.31.21R and ask for its passage.
Thank you, Ms. Farrell. Madam Clerk?
Resolution of the Common Council consenting to the creation of a full-time position, which will affect the salary total for the 2021 budget, Department of General Services.
Any discussion? No. Okay. Okay. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Anani.
Yes.
Valorem.
Yes.
Conti.
Yes.
Doucette.
Yes.
Fahey.
Yes.
Farrell.
Yes.
Flynn.
Yes.
Frederick.
Yes.
Bowie.
Yes.
Igo.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Kimbrough.
Yes.
Love.
Yes.
O'Brien.
Yes.
14 in the affirmative.
Motion and the resolution passes. Ms. Farrell.
Thank you, Mr. President. I notice resolution 23.31.21R and ask for its passage.
Madam Clerk, please read the resolution.
A resolution of the Common Council consenting to an adjustment in salary for the 2021 budget, Albany Police Department.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Discussion? Seeing none. Clerk, please call the roll.
Anani.
Yes.
Valorem.
Yes.
Conti.
Yes.
Doucette.
Yes.
Fahey.
Yes.
Farrell.
Yes.
Flynn.
Yes.
Frederick.
Yes.
Hoey.
Yes.
Igo.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Kimbrough.
Yes.
Love.
Yes.
O'Brien.
Yes.
14 in the affirmative.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Ms. Love, can you do, Mr. Robinson's not here. The resolution for Mr. Mackey.
What's the resolution number?
27/31/21.
27/31/21. All right, thank you, Mr. President. I know this resolution 21.31.21 and ask for its passage.
Thank you, Ms. Love. Clerk, please read the resolution.
Resolution 27/31/21, resolution of the Common Council of the City of Albany honoring the life and legacy of Warren Adrian Mackey and renaming a part of Livingston Avenue in his honor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Discussion? Mr. Johnson.
Yes, I thank you, Mr. President. I just want to say I spoke on this matter in the past, man. We don't really understand what we lost in losing Warren. You know, it could be many stories told, you know, and a lot of them will end with laughter. You know, he's going to be a face that I'm going to miss seeing. He's going to be a voice that I'm going to miss hearing sing. He's going to be somebody that, you know, I could go to, whether it was 5 o'clock in the morning or it was 10 o'clock at night. You know, Warren provided a lot of solutions to many people, and I'll just say it was a huge loss, and I think that this is something that we could do that continue on his legacy, and you know, make sure that at least a conversation could be had about who was Warren Mackey, and hopefully it will be somebody there to speak to the effort that he made while he was here. So I just want to say, job well done, a job well done once again, Warren Mackey. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. But so I'd like to say over on Livingston Avenue where we're doing this it's my area that I share with Mr. Robinson. Mr. Mackey, Warren was a great guy. We lost a lot when we lost him. You know, he's your greatest advocate, but if you're not stepping up and taking care of things the way you need to, he can come down on you. We had some very interesting discussions. I mean, he supports you when he needs to, but if he thinks you can do better, he gets after you. He got after me enough, you know, saying do a little more, or get more involved, and so I'm gonna miss that. And I'd like to say thank you to his family. Warren was everything to everybody. He was involved in everything. He was always helping. He was all, and that comes at a cost. So the time that he spent with us, doing stuff, making stuff better for the community, that was time that he didn't have with his family. And I can remember times him being out with his daughters in tow at some things that, you know, he was involved in. So thank you to Denise and the girls for letting us share your pops and your husband. He's sorely missed and will never be forgotten. So thank you. So with that, we're all co-sponsors on it. So just by a show of hands, all those in favor of the motion passing? Aye. Okay, unanimous. We're all in. So the resolution passes. Thank you all. Okay, we're at the end of our regular agenda. On to miscellaneous unfinished business. We have a commission. Yep.
Yeah, Commissioner.
Ms. Farrell. Ms. Farrell. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. President. I offer the following names, persons be added to as appointed to commissioners of deeds for the city of Albany, New York, for the term ending December 31st, 2022, and waive the reading of the names.
Thank you. Second,
Second.
all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, the names passed, motion passed. Ms. Farrell, anything further?
I have nothing further, but it looks like Mr. Johnson has his hand up.
Mr. Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just would ask everybody to, hear me out. Tonight and through the last several weeks, we have heard people from my community where these protests took place speak out adamantly against the use of tear gas and rubber bullets. And I just would like to ask my colleagues to think about, not only the act of that night, which we heard many different horror stories, but the residue that was left over, just how people could speak about that night like it was just yesterday. And I think that we have to act more of our police in dangerous situations, on a personal level. My family member Dante Ivy, his birthday was this week. That is a loss that, our family and our community will never recover. And we took some steps to try to ensure that, that another family wouldn't be in that situation. And I just think that trauma, we are a city that is dealing with many different forms and level of trauma. And to have this added on top of it is a situation that could have been avoided. And we don't need to have situations that could have been avoided not be avoided. And I think that it's not often that you hear people speak so passionately about something that they're against. And I just will hope that we keep in mind that people, it's not often that you hear people speak. I will hope that we will keep in mind, people's 100% opposition against the use of tear gas and rubber bullets. And I just want to thank you for your time tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Any further? No. Ms. Farrell, I entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you. Second, Mr. Conti, all in favor? Aye. Okay, meeting adjourned.
Have a good night,
Thanks,
everyone.
Good night. Be safe.